Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through different sources to pull out, well, the most potent nuggets of knowledge for you. Today, we're really embarking on quite a fascinating exploration. We're digging into some ancient texts, the goal to distill some practical wisdom, stuff you can actually use for navigating those really tough challenges we all face, fear, doubt, and how we find strength, maybe healing, often through faith, sometimes through these unexpected divine interventions.
Yeah, and the sources we have today, they really speak to each other in interesting ways. We've got this thoughtful reflection piece on divine sustenance and trust that kind of sets the stage nicely. And then we layer in these really rich narratives. We're pulling from Numbers, from Matthew, and also the Psalms. And they all sort of circle around these core themes. Faith, definitely, but also authority, and what it truly means to be, well, sustained through difficulty.
Absolutely. And this isn't just, dusting off old history books. It's about finding the surprising insights, things that maybe help you feel a bit more informed, give you some new angles for facing life's storms when they inevitably hit. So let's dive right in. Okay, so maybe we should kick things off by grounding ourselves in that first reflection piece, the one called Storms, Faith, and Divine Sustenance. It opens with a really powerful line from Psalm 55. Cast your burden upon the Lord, and he will sustain you.
Right. That verse, it just lays such a powerful groundwork, doesn't it? The core idea here, I think, is that real faith isn't about not being afraid. It's more about actively shifting your focus away from the overwhelming problem, the storm itself, towards the source of your strength. The reflection puts it nicely: when storms of life shake us, Jesus tells us not to be afraid, but to keep our eyes fixed on him. It really pushes this idea that, well, faith requires stepping out of our comfort zone. You have to trust that God is actually greater than the waves.
That's such a key point, but it feels almost counterintuitive sometimes, doesn't it? The source even poses this direct question to you, the listener. What fear can I surrender today to step out in faith toward Jesus and trust him more deeply? And that question, it tees up our next source perfectly. It gives this incredibly vivid picture of someone facing exactly that challenge. Yeah, this idea of stepping out in faith. You can't get much more vivid than the walking on water story from Matthew's gospel. Let's set the scene a bit. Jesus has just performed this huge miracle, feeding thousands. He dismisses the crowd, sends his disciples off in a boat across the lake. Then he goes up a mountain alone to pray. Meanwhile, the disciples, their boat is already miles from shore, and it's getting hammered, tossed about by the waves, for the wind was against it. They're really struggling out there.
Yeah, the narrative really emphasizes how bad it was. It says it's the fourth watch of the night. That's between 3 and 6 a.m., the darkest part, when you're most exhausted. And that's when Jesus comes towards them, walking on the water. Just imagine seeing that. So naturally, their first reaction is sheer terror. They cry out, "It is a ghost!"
Understandable.
Totally. But Jesus's immediate words are just so calming. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid."
And then Peter. Always Peter, right? He's the impulsive one. He calls out, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water."
Such boldness.
Right. And Jesus' answer is just so simple. One word, come. And Peter does it. He gets out of the boat. The text says he began to walk on the water toward Jesus.
Incredible. But then comes the very human part of the story. It hits hard. The text says, "But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened. And in that fear, he starts to sink. He cries out, 'Lord, save me.'" Peter's fear here, it doesn't feel like a total failure of faith. It's more like, it shows how faith works in the real world. Even as he's faltering, his immediate cry for help is what triggers the rescue. It suggests that maybe vulnerability isn't weakness, but the very thing that opens the door to grace.
And the response is instant. Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, just like that. Followed by that really gentle, but also quite sharp question. "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" It's not angry, but it's pointed.
And the effect of this whole interaction, it's immediate. As soon as they're back in the boat, the wind just stops. The wind died down. And the other disciples in the boat who saw all this, they just worship him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." And the story doesn't even end there. It broadens out. They land in Gennesaret, and suddenly people are bringing sick people from all over. They begged him that they might touch only the tassel on his cloak, and as many as touched it were healed. It shows the ripple effect of that moment of faith and rescue.
It's so powerful how Peter's experience directly mirrors that first reflection we talked about. He absolutely did falter when fear sets in, but just like the reflection suggested, Jesus was always there to catch him when he called out to him. It's not just a nice story. It feels like a real living demonstration of that divine sustenance in action. Okay, so now let's shift gears a bit. We're going to look at a very different kind of challenge. This one's about authority. It comes from our first reading from the book of Numbers, chapter 12. Here we find Miriam and Aaron, Moses' own siblings speaking out against Moses. The pretext, or the excuse, is his marriage to a Cushite woman. Maybe the marriage broke some social norms, gave them an opening, they thought.
Right, a perceived vulnerability.
Exactly. And their direct challenge cuts deep. Is it through Moses alone that the Lord speaks? Does he not speak through us also? They're questioning his unique connection to God.
And there's this fascinating detail about Moses' character thrown in right there. The text explicitly says, "Now Moses himself was by far the meekest man on the face of the earth, and crucially, the Lord heard this." That word meek here, it's important. It doesn't mean weak or, passive. It points to this deep humility, this reliance on God, not himself. It was a strength, really, under God's control. And that context is vital for understanding what happens next.
Yeah, because God's response isn't subtle, it's immediate and intensely personal. He calls all three, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, straight to the meeting tent. Then he appears himself in the column of cloud right at the entrance. You can feel the gravity.
And the Lord doesn't mince words. He lays out exactly why his relationship with Moses is different. He says it's not like other prophets who get visions or dreams. With Moses, it's direct. "Throughout my house, he bears my trust," God says. "Face to face, I speak to him, plainly and not in riddles. The presence of the Lord he beholds." Then comes the hammer. "Why then did you not fear to speak against my servant Moses?" He confronts them directly.
And the consequence for that defiance, it's instant. And it's incredibly severe. Shocking, really. So angry was the Lord against them that when he departed and the cloud withdrew, there was Miriam, a snow-white leper.
Wow. Yeah. This story gives us a completely different angle on faith and consequences compared to Peter's story. Aaron sees his sister like this, devastated, and he immediately turns to Moses. He owns up to it. Sin that we have foolishly committed. He begs Moses, pleads really, "Please do not charge us with the sin. Let her not thus be like the stillborn babe." It's a graphic plea.
It really is.
And Moses, even though they spoke against him, he immediately tries out to God for her. "Please not this. Pray heal her." It's this powerful moment of intercession, showing a path towards mercy even after such a serious transgression.
Which leads us really smoothly into our responsorial psalm, Psalm 51. The refrain just echoes throughout. "Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned." It's this deep, almost gut-level plea.
Absolutely. And the themes in that psalm, asking God to wipe out my offense, to cleanse me, that raw honesty, I acknowledge my offense and my sin is before me always, they resonate so strongly with both stories we've looked at. The psalm doesn't just stop at confession, though. It yearns for renewal. "A clean heart create for me, O God, and a steadfast spirit renew within me." It offers this essential pathway, towards healing, towards restoration, whether it's after a direct challenge like Miriam and Aaron's, or even after Peter's moment of doubt on the water. It highlights that constant need for humility, for turning back, for trusting again.
And then the Alleluia verse from John's Gospel, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel." It just powerfully circles back, reinforcing the identity of Jesus, the central figure in Matthew's story, the one who commands the waves and heals, ties it all together.
It really does. And that prayer from our very first source, the one that says, "Lord, help me to trust you even when the winds of life are strong. Strengthen my faith to walk where you call me." It feels like a perfect echo for both Peter desperately crying out from the water and Aaron pleading for Miriam's healing. It's that fundamental human cry for help, for strength, for intervention, right when we feel most vulnerable or face the consequences of our actions.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together now. As you look at these powerful stories, what really stands out most to you? We've seen these stark contrasts, haven't we? Peter's very human fear, but then immediate divine rescue, versus Miriam's direct challenge to authority, leading to this severe consequence, but then followed by this profound plea for mercy, for intercession.
Yeah, stepping back, I think what really emerges is the profound importance of humility and trust, and also really understanding the nature of divine authority. These stories definitely show that doubt, well, it's part of being human, Peter shows us that, but they also shout loud and clear that divine grace, divine intervention, it's incredibly present. It's there for those who cry out, like Peter, or even for those who intercede for others, like Moses did for Miriam. And maybe we see two different kinds of faltering here. Peter seems driven by fear, a momentary lapse of focus on Jesus, human frailty.
Right.
Whereas Miriam's, that feels different. It's presented as a direct challenge to God's established authority, maybe rooted in some pride or a feeling of being overlooked.
That distinction is really interesting. It makes you think, doesn't it, about those moments in your own life, maybe when you've been so focused on the storm, the problem, that you completely miss the hand reaching out, or maybe times when perhaps without realizing it, our own strong convictions, our own sense of what's right might have bumped up against a bigger picture, a greater design. These ancient narratives, they really do push us to reflect on our own fears, our own doubts, and maybe the importance of just acknowledging our burdens or even our mistakes. So here's a final thought to chew on. If you put Peter stepping out onto the water right next to Miriam speaking against Moses, two very different ways humans interacted with the divine will there, what new insights could you gain from that contrast, specifically about humility, about obedience, and how they help build trust, not just when you're metaphorically sinking, but in, well, every part of life?
And maybe that connects back to Moses himself. How does the description of him as the meekest man on the face of the earth, how does that give us a deeper understanding, a more profound sense of what it really takes to cast your burden upon the Lord and truly be sustained, not just rescued in a crisis, but sustained day to day?
Lots to think about there. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We really hope this exploration gives you something powerful to reflect on. Until next time.